Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm Margaret Brennan. Former CIA Director and Defense Secretary Robert Gates served 8 presidents, working on nearly every national security issue that America faces. When we spoke at William and Mary Friday, I asked Gates whether he thought North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was really serious about dismantling the country's nuclear program.
I think he's serious about this. I think he sees an opportunity, as do we. I think the president's tough talk and the willingness of the Chinese and the Russians to agree to the toughest sanctions we've ever really applied to North Korea certainly increased the pressure on the North Koreans to come to the table. But I think he also feels that he's at a point with his nuclear program and his ballistic missile program that he can, at least for some period of time, go without testing and test the U.S. administration and see what might happen. I think it's very complicated. They have a nuclear enterprise that is dramatically larger than Iran's. Miles and miles of tunnels, multiple sites, existing nuclear weapons. So getting to genuine denuclearization will be a very complicated process.
You've raised concerns in the past about President Trump's unpredictability as a leader, but do you see that unpredictability as an asset in this case?
I think that the unpredictability in terms of some of the tweets and some of the tough talk did get the attention of the North Koreans and the Chinese as well in terms of fire and fury and so on. My view is generally that tactical unpredictability is good and is an asset. Strategic unpredictability is probably not a good idea for a great power.
Where would you put the president's unpredictability, tactical or strategic?
Well, I think that's not clear yet.
What is he actually able to offer as some kind of incentive for Kim Jong-un to negotiate away his weapons?
Actually, I think the president goes in with a lot of cards to play. A peace treaty, diplomatic recognition, a guarantee that the United States would not try and overthrow the regime by force, the whole panoply of economic sanctions that have been put on. So he has a lot to negotiate with.
If the president gets something in hand from the North Koreans, do you think he has to go to Congress to get approval of it?
I think he should. If you just do these things by executive agreement, first of all, that doesn't make it the law of the land for the next president. The next president, with the stroke of a pen, can overturn it, just as President Trump has done with the Iran deal.
That would need to include inspectors on the ground in North Korea. That would need to include Kim Jong-un actually dismantling some of his nuclear program. I mean, is the benchmark here at least what was negotiated in the Iran deal, and the president has to go beyond that?
Well, it's at least that. When you have a program as expansive as the North's, you have to have anytime, any place inspections. You have to have a huge number of inspectors that can go around the country and can observe destruction of facilities, who can monitor that they stay destroyed, that they aren't being rebuilt someplace else in secret. So the magnitude of the monitoring and the verification of any agreement would be, I think, an order of magnitude more complicated and bigger than is the case and has been the case in Iran.
What do you put the odds of success at?
I put the odds of immediate success as very low. But the odds of getting something accomplished over a longer period of time in a kind of step-by-step approach, beginning with what the president has already gotten in terms of their willingness to talk and the cessation of the testing and so on. Kim looks at the world and he sees that Gaddafi gave up his nuclear program, he's dead, his regime is gone. Saddam never had nuclear weapons, he's dead, his regime is gone. Kim looks at this and says, why would I give up my nuclear weapons? And so I think you have to change the strategic environment in Asia for Kim actually to be willing to consider giving up his nuclear weapons.
What is the immediate impact of exiting the Iran nuclear deal?
Well, I think in the short term, it isolates the United States. I think it was a flawed agreement. We were supposed to get anytime, any place inspections. And to have an inspections regime where the Iranians can say, you can't look at any of our military facilities, where would you most logically put a nuclear program except on a military facility?
But do you think President Trump breaking a U.S. commitment to this international agreement will have implications that are negative?
I do. I absolutely do. My own view would have been it would have been better to stay in the agreement at least for another 6 months and essentially lay down an ultimatum to our allies and say either you join us in very heavy penalties against the Iranians for their ballistic missile programs, and you join us in resisting Iranian meddling in the Middle East. Either you help us with those things, or in fact I will walk away from this agreement. I think we could have pushed the Europeans a lot harder to work with us. And then in 6 months, basically, if they hadn't done that, then you would be in a much stronger position. But as it is now, at least for the time being, we're the country that's isolated.
You had privately cautioned against the appointment of John Bolton. Now he is within the administration. What are your concerns about the advice he's giving the president?
Well, I think that there's a difference between being a television commentator and having responsibilities of office. And I've seen this happen a lot. One thing that has struck me is that the process at the NSC seems to be working better in terms of documentation of things, of positions being taken. He's clearly got a strong relationship with both, has developed a strong relationship with Secretary Mattis and obviously with Secretary Pompeo. So I think in that sense the president is probably better served because there's less infighting, if you will, within the administration.
You were at the CIA for 26 years. Do you agree with Senator John McCain that Gina Haspel is a patriot, but that a refusal to acknowledge torture's immorality is disqualifying for her to be the director of the CIA?
No, I don't think it's disqualifying. I think that I worry about presentism. I think you have to go back to 2001, 2002, and the horror that people in the administration felt. People were terrified about when the next attack was coming. And only with the retrospect of 17 years of no foreign-based major attack taking place again can we go back and revisit these things. I don't know Ms. Haspel, but by all accounts, she's had an extraordinary career, a very distinguished career, has really served her country well. And I think to say she should not be director of CIA today, in the absence of any evidence she did anything wrong 15 or so years ago, I think is a mistake.
How do you assess President Trump at this point of his presidency?
I think the jury is still out, so to speak.
But you've moved away from your initial criticism of him in 2016.
I'm concerned about the way he's treated our allies. By the same token, I think that his tougher approach to North Korea has paid dividends. We'll see how many dividends they pay over how long a time. I think that his tough talk with the Europeans has accomplished something that all of the rest of us who berated them for not spending enough on defense, they are beginning to increase defense spending. So it's not an entirely one-sided picture in my view.
Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
The full interview will be on our website at facethenation.com, and we'll be back in a